First up is the Grand Infernal Painting, a depiction of Orin slaying Zevlor gifted to you by Orin herself, one of the rarest items in the entire game. Beneath the portrait lies the dead body of Zevlor with a curl of parchment in his mouth. Orin found and executed Zevlor in a sickening Bhaalist ritual and drew a painting depicting the act named the Grand Infernal Painting. This painting can be picked up and sold to traders, but it is one of the more beautiful pieces of work, especially because of how rare it is. This grotesque scene is one that most players have probably never seen. To trigger it, you must save the tieflings in Act 1 and make sure to encounter the Mind Flayer pods in the Mind Flayer colony in Act 2. You need to click on the device and make sure not to release nor purge the inhabitants. You actually must select the Leave the Pods Be option to trigger this scene based on my testing, one that probably very few players select. However, if you never interact with the device at all, then this cutscene also will not trigger. Then after you long rest once or twice, or actually 3 times if you're a Dark Urge Origin once you begin Act 3, then you will trigger this scene. You can even use Speak with Dead on Zevlor's corpse, and in that dialogue, one of the last things Zevlor will say is what happened to the others. And next up is Thisobald's Brewed-Up Bellyglummer. This is a very rare weapon coding which can be only learned through reading Thisobald's research notes located behind a locked door in the back of the Waning Moon in Act 2. After reading it, you can pass a DC 14 investigation intelligence check to have your map marked with the location of a shipment containing the reagents you need to craft it. You'll also need to pick up the purple worm gullet located in the back of the room near the research notes in order to create the suspension for the coating. But it's all worth it because not only is it a cool, very rare weapon coding, it also awards inspiration for the guild artisan and criminal backgrounds. And next up is a message from this video's sponsor, HelloFresh. There's a reason HelloFresh is America's #1 meal kit. They let you customize your delivery from week to week to mix and match lifestyle options to suit your needs, like fit and wholesome, family friendly, quick and easy, vegetarian, and so much more. Best of all, everything can be tailored to fit your schedule by adjusting your delivery dates, such as skipping a week if you're not at home. And as the seasons change, so does the seasonal menu, which highlights peak ingredients and flavors for every season, and that includes pumpkin spice. And with summer winding down and fall coming up, we all want wholesome meals that are easy to make and save us money, which is why HelloFresh has something for everyone. Each box includes pre-portioned ingredients, so you only pay for what you need. And with this special promotion, HelloFresh is giving all subscribers free breakfast for life. That means you'll enjoy a totally free breakfast item with every single HelloFresh delivery. What better way to enjoy the most important meal of the day by having it for free? And let me tell you, personally, I love to cook, but hate having to gather all the ingredients, and after using some sauce or ingredients once for a recipe, I never touch it again. And that's where HelloFresh comes in. The pre-portioned ingredients let me enjoy cooking again by making sure I not only don't need to shop for each ingredient, I'll also use everything so I can stop accumulating sauces and spices I'll never use twice, keeping my kitchen clean. So if you're ready to streamline your kitchen, click the link in the description or use my code and get 10 free meals and free breakfast for life. 1 breakfast item per box while subscription is active. If you're in the US, outside the US, the local discount will apply. So click the link and support the channel. Each purchase helps me create more awesome content for you. And next up is a hidden use for the personal note found on Gomwick's corpse in Act 1. Gomwick is a courier for the Sword Coast Couriers and unfortunately met his end and is reduced to just being known as the corpse next to where you find Scratch. But Gomwick's letters can actually be picked up and brought back to the Sword Coast Couriers for some additional dialogue. Danzo will explain how it's such a shame since Gomwick was a great courier and how couriers are hard to come by these days. He'll take the personal note from you and then start talking about his missing pigeons. So although there is no reward for bringing Gomwick's letters back to Danzo, you do get a bit of extra dialogue for doing so. And next up is a secret interaction with Dolor Amaris. This dagger adds +7 damage to your critical hits, but what it doesn't mention is that it also applies to your ranged critical hits too. Not only that, but it also applies to your other damaging sources such as the 2d6 force granted from Crater Flesh gloves on crit, granting even more damage to that. This makes this dagger unbelievably powerful, especially on an assassin, which has guaranteed critical strikes against surprised enemies. Combine this with an arrow of many targets against a group of surprised enemies, and the amount of damage added by this dagger is multiplied, making it insanely OP. Not only that, but you can also dual wield Dolor Amaris. One of these weapons can be found on the corpse of Dolor, the wannabe Baal assassin, and and the other can be purchased from the Echo of a Bazigal. This trader is unlocked by passing the trial of the Baal Murder Tribunal and becoming an unholy assassin of Baal. And next up is Gerson the Bent. This NPC is one of the rarest NPCs in the game that most players miss. The only way to see this secret tiefling is if you keep at least one party member near the entrance of the grove at the same time that you defeat the last of the 3 goblin leaders. Then, when you switch back to that character after the last leader is dead, you'll get a cutscene with this NPC. Gerson only has one line, and there's no dialogue options, so it's really more of a monologue that you listen to, but it's a quick few lines of Gerson telling you if you heard that the goblin leaders have been slain and the others are gathering near the gate. This cutscene is to subtly move the tiefling refugees to the front of the grove without you noticing them teleporting, and it is a very subtle character that most players certainly miss, since you'd probably never leave one of your party members back at the grove during the pinnacle fight of Act 1. And next up is the Trumpet of Sparkles. This is probably missed by most players because the only way to see it is if you free Valeria from her chains after agreeing to slay her. Once you do, she will remain hostile towards you and will attack you repeatedly, eventually using her Trumpet of Sparkles on you. Trumpet of Sparkles deals 4 to 32 radiant damage in a cone AoE in front of Valeria and has a very cool looking effect that only deals damage to evil creatures, which also have disadvantage on the saving throw against it. Since Valeria has such a small health pool, most players would probably either one-shot her, and she also has restrained, so she doesn't get a turn anyways if you fail to kill her in one hit. So it's very rare to agree to slay Valeria and then immediately free her and then have to fight not only Valeria but also Saravok. But as a plus, you do get to witness Valeria use her Trumpet of Sparkles. And next up is the best Spore Servant to raise with Glut. This Spore Servant is invincible and is the most game-breaking bug I've ever seen. By letting Arabella die to Korga when you first meet her, you can steal Arabella's corpse and bring it to Glut to reanimate. Once you have Arabella as a Spore Servant, she will never actually enter combat, so she can attack as many times as she wants and she will never be attacked. This is because children can't die in Baldur's Gate 3, so she has free reign to destroy everything. Her stats aren't great, but as you know from my previous videos, you can equip and give potions to your minions, so with an Elixir of Hill Giant Strength and a proper weapon, she can probably clear all of Act 1 and 2 for you if you wanted to. This is definitely one of the most game-breaking exploits I've ever seen. And next up is how to get Isabel to join you. Isabel grants a powerful spell called Balm of the Moonmaiden, which heals 14 to 84 health on up to 6 nearby allies. So 6 times 14 to 84, it's a ton of healing. This powerful heal can be a real lifesaver, and it's totally worth getting since it's actually not too difficult to get Isabel to join you. All you have to do is complete the quest Resolve the Abduction in Act 2 within Last Light Inn without Isabel dying. Then in Act 2, Dame Aelin must be spared by Shadowheart, which will cause Aelin and Isabel to join your camp. Finally in Act 3, complete the quest Find the Night Song by bringing the Night Song to Ramazith's tower and siding with her to defeat Lorroakan. Then just talk to Dame Aelin and Isabel in your camp afterwards and they will join you in the final fight. And next up is the Secrets of the High Chieftain. This is actually quite hidden and most players probably miss it. On the top of the tower in the center of the goblin camp in Act 1 is a goblin named Booyag Piddle. He's carrying a book called On Goblins, My Life Among the Conquering Host. By either slaying Piddle or pickpocketing this book and then reading it, you will be awarded with an inspiration point for any sage within your party, which includes Gale. The book can also possibly be found near a wicker basket and a pile of food waste, but still on the top of this tower. The inspiration earned is called Secrets of the High Chieftain, and this secret book was actually written by Volo. And what's really great is that this inspiration point is on demand. You can wait to read the book whenever you've run out of inspiration points and need more, so it's perfect for when you can't afford to fail rolls for that on-demand inspiration. And next up is the mysterious elixir found within the Chamberlain office suite in the Tsar Palace. If you pass a perception check when entering the Chamberlain bedroom, you can find the diary of Antwin Dufay. The final page reads that Bone Cloak had sold Antwin a potion that is promised to provide him a convincing illusion of death, and he plans to leave behind a lookalike potion of acid poison so that when his body is found, he will be presumed dead. However, if we go into his office, we can find within the wooden desk that the mysterious elixir is still there and full, and there's actually an empty potion bottle on a small table near his corpse. We can only assume that he must have mixed up the two and actually drank the poison, leading to his death. And then we can take the mysterious elixir for ourselves, letting us cast Feign Death whenever we'd like without the cost of a spell slot action, or bonus action, and it's kind of a neat story behind it too. And next up is the hidden Act 3 Spectator. Now there are 2 Spectators in Act 1, one in the Underdark and one inside the Iron Flask, but did you know there's one in Act 3? Now in order to see this Spectator, you need to deliver the shipment to the Zhentarim in Act 1 unopened. Then in Act 3, you can actually find that very same shipment in the possession of Slick Inatra in the Guild Hall. She wanders around quite a bit, but you can pickpocket it off her or loot it from her corpse, and inside the chest you will find that very same Iron Flask. Just like in Act 1, this Iron Flask can be thrown or opened to release a Spectator, so if you missed it in Act 1, you can still get it in Act 3. And next up is how to get Yurgir to join you. Yurgir is an incredibly powerful ally to have. He can go invisible each turn as a bonus action and has 2 very useful abilities. The first is Concussive Burst, dealing 5 to 40 thunder damage and pushing enemies back, and his much more powerful ability, which is insane, Volatile Cluster, which tosses 3 bombs that knocks nearby creatures prone and will explode in a fiendish flame blast, dealing 28 to 202 damage. Now it usually takes a few turns for the bombs to explode, but if you throw them directly into a fire surface, they will explode immediately. This makes Yurgir probably one of the strongest companions, on par with Supreme Commander Kithrak Voss, and the 2 of them actually work really great together. Throw his bombs into the fire for instant damage. And next up, can you cast Power Word Kill on yourself in a Globe of Invulnerability, survive, and then keep the spell? Now if you saw my last video, we learned that we can keep Power Word Kill permanently by casting it both on ourselves and another target, which kills both of the targets, but you keep the spell to use again when it's otherwise a one-time use. So we should keep it if we do the same, but under a Globe of Invulnerability, right? I tested it out and it looks like the Globe of Invulnerability will in fact keep us alive from this spell. However, we will lose the spell. Now likely this is because we're still alive after casting the spell, and I think this points to the fact that the only reason we keep the spell when casting it on ourselves is because we are dead, and the trigger to remove it probably doesn't work on a target that's not alive. And next up is how to get Arabella to join you. Arabella grants you a passive permanent bonus called Weavewalker, which is essentially a permanent freedom of movement. Difficult terrain can't slow you down, and you can't be magically paralyzed or restrained. To get this, in Act 1 you'll need to save Arabella from Korga and then side with the Tieflings to defeat the Goblin leaders. Then, later in Act 2, you'll need to find Arabella again, who is looking for her parents. Complete that quest by finding Arabella's parents and give the news to Arabella, and make sure to later speak to her again after a long rest in order to actually complete the quest. She won't join unless you have that follow-up conversation. You'll then later run into Arabella again in Act 3 within the lower city sewers, where she will tell you that you will meet again, which you will during the final fight. And next up is how to get Zevlor to join you. Surprisingly, this is probably an ally most players miss, not only because there is no journal entry for Zevlor joining you as an ally, but also because there's an easy to miss key moment in Act 2 where you need to save Zevlor. But he's very much worth saving because he offers you the Hellrider platoon, which includes Zevlor himself, a paladin, and a cleric to aid you in the final fight. So to save Zevlor, you'll need to complete the quest Save the Refugees by siding with the Tieflings. Then, near the very end of Act 2, you'll need to find Zevlor, who is trapped within a Mind Flayer pod within the Mind Flayer colony, and you'll need to release all inhabitants, which includes Mind Flayers, and then ensure that Zevlor does not die during the ensuing battle. Do that successfully, and Zevlor himself will be at your command in the final fight. And next up are the Acolytes of the Demonweb Pits. Within the Underdark, where you'll find many worshippers of Lolth, there is one in particular seeking to convert others into her fold. Lur Xanta is giving a speech to other members of the Lur clan, Lur Jox, Lur Fu, and Lur Otan, trying to sway them to leave Father Murmath, the head of Clan Lur. If you help Lur Xanta convince the others to leave the Duergar for Lolth, not only will they not attack you if you turn on the Duergar, you'll also be awarded with an Acolyte background inspiration point called Acolytes of the Demonweb Pits. But of the options available, the only one that actually awards the inspiration is the Persuasion option, which says, "I think your sister is right. Among the Spider Queen's worshippers, you'll reach your true potential." Now, the other options may lead them to leave for Lolth, but they don't actually award this inspiration. And next up is how to get Viconia to join you. Viconia Devere is a drow cleric of Shar. She's also a character that was in both Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, Shadows of Amun, where she was a companion. In Baldur's Gate 3, she is known as Mother Superior and tasked Shadowheart to retrieve the artifact. Upon entering the House House of Grief, Viconia will demand you turn over Shadowheart to her, and doing this will of course permanently remove Shadowheart from your party, but you will gain Viconia's support in the final fight in the form of Nightbringer's Shadow Adepts. However, you can only choose to give up Shadowheart if Dame Aelin was spared during the quest Find the Night Song. If Shadowheart instead becomes a Dark Justiciar, then you can help Shadowheart overthrow Viconia instead to become the leader of the Sharan Cloister, and you'll get the very same Shadow Adepts that siding with Viconia would have granted you. And next up is a Unified Spirit. This Acolyte background inspiration is actually very rare because you can only get the dialogue options to obtain it if you are a cleric worshipping a number of mostly good deities: Tyr, Ilmater, Moradin, Corellan Lorethian, Elistre, Lathander, and Maliki, or Helm. Or if you are a paladin, you'll also get the dialogue option. Now to get this, you need to pray with Fist Recruit Ephron at Joaquin's Rest through selecting the specific dialogue option, and since Shadowheart is a cleric who worships Shar, she doesn't have the dialogue option. But if you have a paladin who prays with the Fist Recruit, for example, then Shadowheart actually will still be awarded the inspiration point because of her Acolyte background.